What is up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, invading Ohio for Incarceration Festival 2019, and we are here with Raven Black and Muppet. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. I've seen you guys on so many tours, and I've worked press at all of them. It's great to finally sit down and interview with you.
Yeah.
Right on. Again, thanks for having us.
So, you're currently working on some new music right now. Is this going to be like a direct follow-up to 13, or do you think that this new record is going to stand out a little bit more in your catalog?
It's definitely going to stand out. It's our Black album. So darker, heavier, a little bit creepier, just heavy.
Super
Definitely
heavy.
heavy.
Yeah, we're very excited for it. The last two songs we played today are going to be on the new record.
Okay.
So you can kind of hear the direction that we're going with it as well.
Are those two singles like a real cool representation on the whole record itself, or is there some experimentation
I
involved?
know, it's definitely kind of the direction on this third album. Carnival and Risen from the Ashes, definitely.
Gotcha.
It's going to coincide with our second issue of our comic book, We Came Across the Darkness. So that's kind of the theme of the third album.
Now, I've seen you guys play with a variety of different bands. Like, you just did the tour with Static X, but you also were on tour with Devil Driver and Ginger. You were on tour with Cradle of Filth and
Yes.
Wednesday 13. Depending on, like, the tours you have been on, and being that you have experimentation in your songs, do you sometimes, like, adjust your set list depending on, like, the tours you're on?
Definitely.
Absolutely. When with Cradle and Devil Driver, we try to do more up-tempo, heavy-hitting songs. When we were out with like Mushroom Head, we tried to be more creepy and keep it more of a ambiance type of a feel. But, so we absolutely change it depending on who we're playing with. Yeah.
Definitely.
Now, what I was curious about is, as somebody who has seen you live countless times, it's a very different experience with how you portray yourselves on stage. Is Raven Black and Muppet, are these characters extensions of yourselves, or are these characters that you came up with after writing music?
Definitely is an extension of ourselves. That's how the characters were created and originated from each of our past lives, who we are as people. Each of us have certain strong character traits that were written into our own characters, so they were very organic, extremely.
And it goes into the makeup and everything too. Yeah. So we each create our own character and portray it through how we play, what we look like, everything that you see.
Did this determine the outcome of the sound of your music as well? Since you focus on both imagery and a sonic sound?
Absolutely. They definitely went hand in hand, and especially the story as well. It's the songs wrote the story wrote the songs, and it all was like a trifecta that came together, that everything fueled each other, which was a really cool process to see.
Yeah.
Do you think of a story or a concept and write music kind of like according to that, or do you sometimes need to hear some music before lyrics come into play? Or
I write lyrics all the time, but there's always definitely a purposeful intent to a storyline. So music would be, I guess you could say, a soundtrack to our story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you like to leave your story a little bit open to interpretation for your listeners, or are you
Definitely.
trying to maybe get the listener to sort of follow the story of Raven Black and engage?
A little bit
with
of
it?
both. Definitely a storyline to follow, so they understand each of our characters and become personally connected with each of the characters, as well as the story. Looking forward to what's going to happen next, kind of thing. Kind of like you think of a movie trilogy, or oh my God, what's going to happen next? What are they going to be up to in this next album? But also, I purposely write lyrically, very metaphorically, so that there is room for interpretation and them to be able to relate in their own lives.
If somebody tells you what they got from their personal experiences, could that maybe change your perspective on the song as opposed to when you first made it?
Absolutely.
That's a lot of that.
Absolutely.
A lot of that. A lot of people reach out to us and just tell us how much our music or a certain song has influenced their life or has saved their life or has gotten them through some very, very trying times. And that's probably the most fulfilling part of us writing our music, is when we hear those kinds of things. Yeah.
Are you just as much in character when you are recording or making the music as are you kind of like the same we see on stage versus off stage?
Well, if you hang out with me off stage, you pretty much see the same person. I'm a goofball, and I'm creepy in general. I'm a weirdo, and I embrace it, both on stage and off stage. So you you can ask any one of our Ravens Rejects fans that hang out with me, hang out with us on our bus, hanging out. We've gone to eat lunch together. We're pretty much the same people.
It was actually really funny. While I was waiting to interview Wednesday 13 at the Cradle of Filth
Yep.
show, I was like, "Wow, you guys are awesome to hang out with." And then seeing you live, I was like, "Wow, it's really not that much different. You are who you portray on stage."
Yes.
Absolutely. We try to be as real as possible. Like, 'cause it's what we would like to see when talking to someone, right? Just having like a real conversation. We like to be the same way.
But when you're making music, when the song isn't written yet and you have to go into songwriting mode, I'd imagine that the way you approach music in general, even if as your character you approach it a little bit differently, right? Like,
Oh yeah. Like when I write drum parts, I like to write things that I can do stuff visually on the stage as well. So I might, instead of doing crazy fills, I might do something where I'm just, I don't know.
Juggling.
It'd be sweet to learn to juggle. I mean, but you get kind of where I'm going with that.
you could juggle your drumsticks while playing. Every drummer should just quit at this point.
Right? Fucking right. I wish I could, but I do other shit. That's why the dreads help, because then I can wave that shit around and there's another aesthetic to what I'm doing.
And the final question I want to really ask you, and it's, again, great to have you guys here, is just, this festival right now is so awesome. And, being that the last couple of times I saw you at regular shows and not at a festival, for you guys, is performing at a festival like Incarceration different than like performing at a regular show or something like
Definitely. We were just talking about when we got back into our bus, but what I found different is, like today, you play in front of a festival crowd. They have so many activities. Incarceration's got so much going on. There's so many cool things to check out, so many great bands to watch. You've got two different stages. You've got you've got the food trucks, you've got the tattoo artists, you've got the booths, and of course beer. They get to choose to stay and watch your set. Whereas if you play a tour or a show, some people are there to see just the headliner. Some people are there, a little later. They're not really into your genre, or maybe they're not into theatrical metal. So they're kind of forced to watch your set. Whereas in a festival setting, they want to watch your set. They actually come to your stage and watch your show, and they want to be a part of it. So there is definitely, a connection difference in the crowd and in us and interacting with each other. Because if they're not into it, they can walk away. Whereas at a show, they're kind of in the venue.
Yeah.
So for me, the appreciation, like today they started chanting our name, which was really cool, and that doesn't really happen in a venue because they're ready for the next band, So in a festival setting, it's anything goes, and I love the spontaneity of that.
So before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. 13 is out right now, but when could we be expecting the new album, if you're allowed to say?
The new album, we're hoping it'll be done this fall on our second part of the Static X Devil Driver tour.
Okay, and that's the next story you have coming up?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you
for having us.
Of course. Everybody, Raven Black, pick up 13 if you haven't already. New music coming soon, and catch them on the up-and-coming Static X tour. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.